Hello, hello, hello. It's Monday afternoon, and I'm so excited to be here with Affidian Magazine presents Spotlight On. And this is a new show. And this, I wanted to take a moment because when I interview people for the magazine, whether they're on the cover or part of the Inside Spotlight, we can only put so much into the story. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be more fun to bring that person on live and we can go a little deeper into those stories and get real more of that background story that was that we couldn't get into the magazine or even on the website. So today our guest is Mary Jane Charles, the Last Wishes facilitator. Hello, Mary Jane. How are you?
Hello, Karina. It's so good to be here. Thank
I
you.
know, it's so excited to have you on. And of course, we just had you on the cover of our magazine.
Yes, I have mine as well right here.
Ah, gorgeous, gorgeous. The pictures came out wonderful. And I love how, that photo shoot. I mean, maybe you just had a reason to take a photo shoot, but aren't you happy you did? I mean,
Oh,
and we had a nice, pretty spread. It
yes.
It was a great article. It was a great spread. You got a nice cover feature, and we shared a lot here, but obviously we couldn't get everything in there. As you know, we had to crop and we have numbers. But let's just go back from the beginning. And you are now really branding out more your story about your book, even though it's called, the last
Surviving the.
surviving. I know people have they feel a little weird about that, but surviving the business of dying.
Mhm.
I'm sure you get a lot of weird feeling, and I'm sure you've had a lot of advice on couldn't you change the name and make it more? But at the end of the day, that is what it is.
Well, it need not be surviving. And I say that three quarters through my little book. I said, all that you just read, you can avoid. Just write it down. Just write it down. And I provided a workbook, even so you even have a place to put whatever your thoughts are. And but the reason is, and is this the point you would like me to go into my story?
Yes.
Okay. So it all came out, it was cathartic at my point. I'd never written a book before, but I was flopped into an abyss of chaos for the simple reason I had no instructions. We'd been married for a while, late in life marriage. His children were adults, somewhat estranged, etc., etc. He wasn't well. I said, you really need to see a doctor. Well, he visited Dr. Google. That was his doctor. So there were
Dr.
no words.
Google, you said?
Dr. Google.
Okay.
So I didn't get to meet any doctor and tell the rest of the story, or see, it was he wasn't going to go the normal route.
Right.
Uh, Long story short, he was really getting weaker and needed to visit with his partner, which I found out later that wasn't so. So be prepared. If you think you know everything about your partner, there are black holes. There just are,
Always.
unless somebody filled something out ahead of time. So we were en route to his business meeting. I said, "You're not driving, I am." He was too weak and hadn't slept. And by the time we got there, I looked over to say, "Come on, we're here." And he had died. He had died in the car seat next to me. He was that weak. I wasn't shaken. I almost expected it because the morning was extremely strange. To the degree, before we left the house, I asked one more time if he would fill out a medical directive. I don't need it, doesn't apply to me. And I'm looking at him as he can barely hold his head up. I said, I have a phone and I have the Washington State medical directive. If I read it to you, will you shake your head or not? in agreement. I'll ask them in a yes or no fashion. Yes. Well, it took me about 20 minutes, but I had it on my phone. What made me do that in that moment? I have no idea. We have our phones with us, period. I'd had the medical directive with me for months. Did I put them together ever? No. But in that moment, I did.
Wow.
Did not know that it was less than 4 hours later that I would be asked for his final papers. And I just couldn't, it was surreal. I felt like I was an extra in a movie. Here's this ER physician asking me for the DNR, do not resuscitate, or whatever you want to do.
Right. Were you actually driving towards the hospital at that moment?
No, we were en route to what they called their office. It was a coffee shop. And so we were right there when we arrived, and he was slumped over. And a man in the car next to us, I don't know where he came from, but he happened to be right there. He said, "You're having problems. I will call 911." I said, "Okay." And then the ambulance arrived, and they took him. And the next time I saw him, he was in a hospital bed. And so the medical directive, I'll get back to that in a minute. The doctor came and asked me for his papers. I showed him the phone. He was shocked, had never seen this before. And yet he was most appreciative because he could see his patient,
right,
even just earlier that day, and how debilitated he was. So it allowed him, he said, "May I take this?" I said, "Sure." I'm sure he had to run up to legal or the powers that be and say, "What do you think of this?" And it was thumbs up. So no further extreme measures were taken. His wishes were honored. And it's just amazing. So if I can pass the pearl of wisdom right here, right now, everyone please fill out a medical directive for your state. They are free, they're online, and you really do want them because you never know. I mean, people fall in their driveway and bathrooms all the time. Baseball players get pinged, God help them. You never know when something's going to happen.
Unexpected.
And if you can't speak for yourself, this is what they ask for. So fill yours out. Let everyone fill out their own, 18 and over. Keep them accessible. They're not meant to be a secret, because if you need them in a hurry.
Right.
So put one in your glove compartment, your night table, put them in freezer bags, and put them on the refrigerator. It's a grab and go. Right. The EMTs can read from them to the hospital they're speaking with.
So can you explain us what that paper is, though? What this medical directive is?
I didn't. It's called a medical directive or a end of life directive. They have different names in different states. Try to have it for your state if you've moved, because there are tiny differences between states, and you do not want a problem in the moment. You want it to be up.
Is it like a legal paper? Does it, or do you need to notarize, or it doesn't need to be notarized?
It doesn't need to be, no, but it never hurts.
Right.
But some people believe in them, some don't. And in not filling them out, you are putting your family at risk of horrible decisions to make when they were, in fact, your decisions to make.
Exactly.
And if you're afraid or uneasy with it, with all due respect and kindness, and especially love, get over it. It's not for you. It's for your family.
For the people that stays behind.
You want them to have instructions. You want them to know what you prefer. A family is a group. That's not a good thing when it comes to making decisions for another single person. That's why you read about horrible things between families.
You know what? I just went through that. My dad just recently passed away. And And you're right. Had we not put, I mean, at least 3 years back when he first got sick was the first time I said, "Does he have a will?" And it was like it was, but it wasn't airtight. So we did get the lawyer in and had my mom Kim, who's also and say, "Okay, let's get this straight out." And even so, we still were missing pieces that we now have to deal with, and some bank accounts that we didn't account for, and
Exactly.
you can explain how probate works. That goes on for months, maybe years. Can
Yes.
you explain how your situation went with your probate?
Well, the way probate, and it's different state to state, and out the gate, it's almost not about money, but you might have more money than you think you do. And there are what they call ceilings in every state. So, for argument's sake, say 100,000. If your estate uh, rises above that in value, all your different holdings in your savings accounts, your investments, that goes to probate. Now, if you'd taken care of it a year ago and spoke with an attorney and connect them with your CPA, different investments might have been shifted to one side or the other, and you would not have qualified for probate. So that's why you hear all the fuss. We need to discuss things. It's just in title and it's law. I am not a CPA.
Right.
I am not a lawyer. I'm simply pointing out if you have a very bad toothache, you don't go to a general practitioner, you go to a dentist.
Right.
Don't
Well,
don't
no, right. The only reason I brought up the probate is for people to understand that it takes a long time. And if they don't understand, people get upset and they're like, "Well, why is it taking so long?" And what you're trying to
absolutely,
say is, let's avoid that by taking care of your papers now.
absolutely. And so in my case, there were no papers. And there were 3 adult sons in the estate of a fourth who had predeceased him, and there were grandchildren, and me. And
Wow.
had I come to be uh, the day after his father died, the eldest had me at an attorney he knew of at his office, less than 24 hours after the fact. So I was like, what's going on? Because I had only just gotten back from the hospital almost.
Right.
And so I did go. I was kind of shell shocked. So you do what you're asked to do. And we went to this attorney's office, and his uncle was there, my brother in law, and the partner. I don't know, there was another man, and the attorney. And I'm watching this, and I looked at the son and I looked at the brother in law. I said, is either of you taking charge in this? Oh, no, not me. And I thought, son of a gun, which was actually good because they took themselves out of the loop. And
Okay.
I didn't have to deal with them,
Mm-hmm.
period. And I
Right.
made that in my brain right then and there. The attorney went on as if I was some waif in the wilderness speaking to the men. And I
Yep.
thought, this is unbelievable. So I let them talk. I tuned myself out. I'd heard enough. And I stood up and I thanked him for his time. And it was time for me to go. They were all like, what? And I started for the door. I was done. And there was a couple of points there. I didn't live in his state, I lived in the other state. And he was going to use a post office box, which I had for years, as my residence. I thought, well, no, you're not, because that didn't sit well with me.
Right.
I didn't like that. So, long story short, I exited. The eldest son escorted me. And I mean, we're talking about 50-year-old men here. They're not children as far as sons. And I said, understand this. I will pick my own attorney. I'm not working with him. And it will be after the funeral, which is next week.
Wow.
So
So that was
that
a lot. That was a lot
that
of
was
stuff to throw on you while you are still getting over the shock of
Well, you're
losing
not
your
even
husband.
there. You're just realizing people you're there because somebody died yesterday, and it was totally bizarre. So the second point of my visit today, please meet an attorney. Just go find an attorney with whom you can work. You'll know. You judge people all the time. I think I'd like to work with them. I'm not going back there. Whatever your reasons are. He couldn't get my name straight, for instance.
Oh my
I was
goodness.
Marie, then I was Mary Alice, and I thought, this isn't going to work. And I'm from New York, and I can laugh, but I always get a bit steamy. I'm like, this is not good behavior on the part of professionals in my world. So I just blew the whistle and I closed that game. So going forward, you don't want to have to do this after the funeral where you are literally shopping for an attorney. That
Right.
is another
Right.
absolutely bizarre exercise. You
Right.
know, you're talking to the lady in front of you. Do you know a probate attorney? You get a few stares, but I
Right.
didn't know any.
Right.
So take the time now, in among all your shopping, look at all the storefronts in town, or look in a directory, or speak with someone you know, like, and trust. Do you have an estate attorney, a probate attorney? If you have a CPA, they know all kinds of attorneys.
I think a lot of people think, well, I don't have an estate, I don't have a trust, but it doesn't have to be something major. It could be the most simplest stuff,
That's right.
having access to a bank account if something happens, having access to your car, the house if there's a house. I mean, just anything, a business, which is another thing.
A business is especially important. I know of a gentleman who died last week, I think it is, and his family, he died suddenly and left nothing. And as far as papers, there's a real
Right.
estate, and they will get something at some point, but it's not going to happen quickly. The
Right.
other half, his business, his name was the only one on all the checks. His employees have to sit and wait to see what judges say, and who knows when that will be.
They're going to get paid and all
They're
of that.
not
Yeah.
getting paid. No one
Mm-mm.
can sign the checks.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah.
they are in a pickle. And this is a man, anyone who runs a business, your business is your baby. Just like the baby you go home and feed every night.
Correct.
And you love them sometimes more than you love your own family. Who knows? You want to take care of them. And not,
Right.
I mean, they're going to be sad, but you
Right.
can't leave them wanting because you're afraid of
Correct.
forms. This
I
is
know.
not about you.
Right.
So this is why you definitely need an attorney to walk you through the forms. And my book brings you through the practical side. It's not an legal document. It's a book. It looks like a coloring book because I wanted you to find it. And it's question and answer. So it's simple. And the blank page is not a mistake. It's room so that you can write. And it's
Additional
written
thoughts.
in your hand. It's
Right.
not intended to be done online. And the reason for that is so that no one can question your wishes.
Exactly.
And you can use it as a starter for a will. It's not will making. It asks you, do you have a will? And highly, highly recommends it. It's got spots for the names of your doctor and your attorney. It is.
Do you have suggestions? Because there, like you said, there's stuff that people don't even think of, which obviously you had to think of. So I'm sure it's also in that book.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I have all kinds of things sitting here. Some are kind of like, why is she asking that? Like, who do you want to? There's a starter page for your eulogy, and you could name
which I already did. I already wrote my eulogy.
There you go.
I'm like, someone please read it for me. But I'm like, no, I'm going to write my own eulogy.
Excellent. Well, and the beauty of this little book is if somebody kind of is spooked by it, if you will, they're just afraid. It's kind of fun to work through with somebody if they want company doing so. You
Right.
learn family history. You'll hear stories you might not have heard told before, and it becomes a keepsake
It does.
and
Actually,
or a reference known as a
right.
primary source if there's any questions to the will.
So
Oh
I
no,
do,
no,
Mary Jane, I
Karina wanted this on page
exactly.
38. She listed everything. She changed
So
it
we're gonna get
once.
back, we're gonna come back to the book because you mentioned history. And in the magazine, we have a story about the boat, your boat.
Oh, my phone. Yes.
Your
Um,
dad got you a boat that when you wanted to what run away, you just jumped in this boat and like disappeared. Tell us a story about the boat.
my boat. Now, when my mother didn't drive, and we had a summer house out on Long Island, and my father did the arithmetic because I was like 13, and to go any place, they would have had to call a taxi. This is like a bizarre story, but it's true. So, anywho, he decided it was cheaper. Mary Jane should have a boat, and it wasn't a big boat, but who cares? And it had a little engine, and I was the girl in the boat. And I was in that. I mean, you think about it today, there were no cell phones. My mother
Correct.
didn't drive,
Correct.
and I was 13 on a bay
So, but the boat would get you where to town?
from the house into town. And I was
Oh,
camp counselor 4 hours a day. And that was my job.
so
So I
instead
had to
of
pay for
getting a
it.
car, they gave you a boat.
It's crazy.
That is cool, though. That is excellent.
I'm telling you, I thank him so often. I had to think for myself. I got stuck. I sheared pins. I was in fog. Um, I forget what else, but I remember pulling. The boat was light enough. It was like a Boston whaler, if anyone knows what that is. It looks like an ice tray, so it doesn't really get stuck. It beaches. It gets beached. So
Right.
you put the rope over your shoulder and you walk along the bulkhead and you pull your boat. That's how you get home. But I had no one to call. I knew the names of all the baymen, as they call them, the clammers and the diggers. And ay. But it builds fortitude, and I got to get home. And I couldn't say, "Oh my God, what happened to me today?" Because it would, they were fun crazy, but they weren't nuts. They would have taken the boat away from me. I'm not a chance.
That is so brave of your parents. Oh my goodness. I can't even imagine.
Well, I was the youngest. Everybody was much older off. Two were married, and two in college, and then there was Mary Jane.
Right. So you were like, you're the youngest in the family, but by a big gap,
Yeah,
right?
huge. Yeah.
It was a big
And
gap. So
so
right.
I got a boat.
That is funny. Because you always say, oh, when I've had it, I just want to jump in my boat and be left
That's
alone. And
right.
I thought, that is excellent. You have a boat to just go. Just go.
Close my eyes and
Just go.
go. Yeah.
And what
Yeah.
about other like traffic? I mean, other boat traffics.
Well, did you ever see on Golden Pond with Henry Fonda? They
Mm,
lived in a fabulous cabin in Connecticut. And his grandson got in the boat without permission and he floored it. And the bow of the boat went up to lead. Oh, I was like, yes, I know that feeling. Absolutely. It was wonderful. But
oh
yes,
my goodness.
that boat has saved my bacon in life many times. The
That is
feeling, I
good.
know the feeling.
It's
It's
a
great.
great feeling. So another story is that you drove cross country to just move, and is this recent? I think this was recent,
Yeah.
like last year. And you just
It
jumped in
was,
your car and started. I'm out of here.
well,
What happened? Yeah.
after this estate closed, and even
Oh, you
before
didn't tell
then,
us how long it took before it finally resolved itself.
that's right. It took 18 months.
18 months.
I went through 3 attorneys. And I could have hired a fourth, but I was exhausted. I did not want to explain this to anybody else again. So I was like, and pay attention to what you know is true and stand by it. Um, at one point, a banker said, well, Mary Jane, we can invest your share. And I said, my share of what? I haven't been told by the state how to do this.
Anything.
Because that's another thing. It's according to the rules of the state you're in. It's not what he would have preferred or what you had spoken of over the years.
Oh.
There are dead straight rules. And so the state happened to be a community property state, which means half and half. It's not community property. Anybody gets the whole thing. So, and that's after everything's been evaluated and bills have been paid. I mean, the list is long. So I knew this banker and I thought, what are you doing? I'm not taking any money. It's not mine. So I said, no, we're not doing that. And then I told him after the estate was closed, he said, well, why did you? I said, had I taken your advice, I would have been in a lot of trouble. And I just left it like that.
He was more worried, concerned with investing your money in his bank.
He wanted the business.
He just wanted the business.
And I thought, oh, that's not going to happen. So you really have to go back to your gut, if you will, as to what's right. So the attorney and an attorney was not paying attention to the final reconciliation. Thank God I'm a bookkeeper. I looked at the papers. These are not right. They're not right. And but I was exhausted, and it would have ended. Sign it and let it be. And I signed it. I was tired of everybody saying, "What's taking so long? What's taking so long?" And I said, I agree. So when he came back and he gave me his final bill, it said, I'm not paying this. And if you want to, you and I will go through the papers. So he was ticked. And we went through the papers, and he was absolutely silent. And he sent an affidavit to me that I would sign and said there would be no recourse due to the mistakes made.
Wow.
And that was fine. It was done. Everybody got what they needed. And so I had, when it takes things a long time, you have a lot of time to think. And I'm an East Coast girl, and I wanted to leave the Northwest. My son was grown, and he wanted to go on with his life in Seattle. And I got in a car. I asked a friend of mine, would you like to be my co-pilot? Driving cross country, we were having tacos, and she said, sure. I'm thinking, do you want to swallow first? She said yes so quickly. So be careful what you wish for. I had a destination, I had a co-pilot, and my dog and cat got in the car, and she and I got in the car. Took us 5.5 days, and
wow.
It was hilarious and fun. And I can say I drove cross country.
That you could say. That you definitely could say. I have not done that yet. I'm not even big on driving. I drive around 20 minutes around my area. That's long distance for me.
Well, I had driven a lot, and I just wanted to end this chapter of my life. And
now, was that just I want to leave this behind and move on, or was that something you always wanted to do, though? Did you always just want to be on this side?
I never had the opportunity before.
Yeah, that's true.
And
so now you are a single lady.
Yeah.
Kind of. And what can you tell, again, single ladies who, but I said, as we get older and we're this is new life. This is it's like restarting your life from scratch. You're alone, you live alone. You have to make all your decisions alone. I mean, in one way, it is really, really nice to be, it's kind of a freedom at this point. just tell us your experience with
Well,
this.
it was surreal. I'd had a lot of time to think. And my son had his plans, so that part of my puzzle was solid as well. And I kind of discovered a little town in North Carolina. I did do two two trips. Um, I didn't need to live in that part or that part, and I found this little village along the water.
Oh, nice.
Full cycle to the boat. I saw a couple of boats, and I took them as a sign.
The boats.
My boat. I watched this older gentleman getting in his boat, and I thought, oh, I know what that must be like. So I did, and I found an apartment. It was a little cottage. It was really sweet, and I was brand new to a brand new town. No one knew it. I didn't know anybody. They didn't know me. So you can decide what are you going to be.
Right.
You know, you can
Right.
go blonde or not,
Right.
I'm teasing, but you have that kind of license.
Right.
So, and my truck didn't come for 9 weeks. My moving truck,
Oh,
and
goodness.
and I've never slept on a floor before. I had air mattresses for our trip, but that's what I slept on for over 2 months. My
My
dog and
goodness.
cat were like, "Why are you on the ground? Get up!" But so buy good camping gear because you might well need it.
There you
And
go.
I kept thinking they stole all my stuff and it's on a curb someplace. Anyway, it arrived. Um, but meanwhile, this little town had ballroom dancing.
No.
And I looked at the sign and I thought, oh, what a ride. So it was on Tuesday and Thursday nights for an
Mhm.
hour. And that was my exercise, other than walking the dog. I went to ballroom dancing.
That
Yeah.
is fun.
Oh, it's hilarious.
That is,
Absolutely hilarious. So
that's
do
fun.
something silly and it's good for you.
Right. And you're staying active, so that's good. Did you make
Yeah,
friends
and
in
you
your
meet
area?
people. It's a very easy, but you're not sitting in a bar watching a basketball game. You're dancing, and you have a skirt on or whatever you're dancing in.
And you're meeting people, so you're
Yes,
creating a new
you make
community, and
friends.
you start to make friends eventually, and well, that's life, But you're like definitely, you're killing it. You're like you just reinvented yourself. You went into this book. You I think you wrote it out of frustration first,
I did.
and then realize, oh, well, this is good stuff. I should pass this on. Or how did that come about? Did someone encourage you to, like, hey, you should,
I
do
I
something with it?
was vaguely in a marketing group, and someone else had. I know a published author slash uh, grammar school teacher had used in the day it was Amazon's book publishing called Create Space.
Right. Yes.
Very easy to do.
Hmm.
So I thought, I'm going to do this. And she had like a 4 meeting course that she taught. I took it and I wrote my book and I published it. So the estate closed that December. Monies were dispersed that December. I got the taxes done. I changed my name back to my maiden name and I published the book. That was all in
Wow.
between January and May.
Wow.
And I talked to my friend as far as driving with me. That was like that February or March. And we were in the car that September.
You made a lot of decisions in a very short time.
But it all fell into place. I wasn't rushing. And in the end, you do rush because you're like, oh, I have plenty of time, like anything else in life. But the truck's coming. So you got to quick decide what you're taking. And that's how we did it.
Wow.
Oh, but the book, I survived it. I survived the business side of his dying. And that's where the book came from. Surviving the business of dying, why final papers matter. And a year later, I put the book, I saw an ad for a book contest. And it won finalist in the genre in the 2019
Wow.
International Book Fest.
Wow, that's
So
excellent.
that was just
Congrats.
fun. That was
It's an added bonus. So that's it's
yeah,
an
that
added
was fun.
accolade for, for taking that effort. I always say this is how the universe works. You think you're doing something for no reason, but there's always a reason behind, because now this is now your business.
That's right.
Something you did in frustration all of a sudden is now something that you're focusing on and actually making a business out of it. So you're now doing coaching and helping people fill in their paperwork now, correct?
Correct. It became a mission, and I had a good old fashioned fit. I think it was over Memorial Day weekend that year. And I was just, nothing was changing. Anytime I thought, okay, that piece is okay, I cried, I yelled, the cat flew out the door. And I just thought, oh, this is a book. I had piles all over my desk, financial, medical, whatever else was in the mix. I said, these are chapters. And this is my book. And no one should have to go through this. No woman, because I'm a woman and you're left with this abyss. I was annoyed, to say the least. Really
Could
not happy.
imagine.
I
Yeah.
wasn't sad. I was like, ugh. And so that's where the book came from. And my friends were like, great book, Mary Jane. I still don't know where to begin. So
Right.
I created the
That's
workbook.
how, okay.
And that's the little book that can. My
Right.
story is my story, but the workbook is the absolute in all of this.
Right. Well, that's, I'm sure, I mean, I've done some research, obviously, and, there are different, I've seen some books, something like that, but I think you're the only one that has the story, which grabs the person first, as in this wasn't just a I want to make money book. This is coming from your heart. This came from
Yeah,
frustration, anger, hurt, sadness, grief, everything because of the confusion. And you're right. It's usually the women that's left hanging, not knowing what to do, or where's the money, where's the bank, and so I think it's great, especially because, and of course, I have my own copy,
yeah.
and I've been through it already. And it's again, it's right because you break it down in such easy to follow pieces. And there are moments I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Oh, thank goodness,
That's
because we
that's what I'm.
miss. Because
Yeah,
right now we're so we're just like, oh well, this is my life and everything looks great. But like you said, I mean, even the email addresses, email and passwords, and how can people go in and either dissolve it or whatever that is. There's so many little details
the
we
little
don't think of.
things, as in anything in life, it's the little things, and they will make you crazy. Okay, so you bank at B of A. What branch? With whom do I speak? What do you mean speak? It will still take a human being, whoever you're whoever follows you in your stead to finish your business,
Right.
they will have to go to a bank and speak to someone.
Hmm.
So to make friends with Karina ahead of time, and if Harry goes in my stead and says, Miss Karina, I'm here on behalf of Mary Jane Charles. I know Mary Jane,
Right.
whatever the case.
Right.
It to
Makes
have
a
someone
difference.
know who you are in the moment
Hmm.
without you having to take out all these
All the paperwork.
documents is enormous. That's the other thing. With hiring an attorney and having a will, you will appoint what they call an executor.
Right.
That's the person who we're talking about.
Right.
If you don't do that, someone in the family will have to hire an attorney anyway to file the paperwork so they can be appointed personal representative. And that the forms cost, the attorney cost. You're
Oh my
going to pay
goodness, that's a
someone
lot of
somewhere.
stuff.
Best it come ahead of time so you know who you're appointing. Because other than that, nothing can move. No lights are paid, no food is purchased. And, you could be his mother, for Pete's sake. And, that doesn't matter. It has to be a legal document. So if for nothing, 500, that is like, oh, I don't have it. It's an investment. It's an
Right.
investment
In
in
your
your
future.
family.
It's just and peace of mind. Like that's like the biggest part. When you know, before I started working on my papers, that was one of the things in the back of my head. If anything happened right now, there's nothing for my kids, and my kids are still young. So it's like, oh, and it really actually kind of kept me up at night. So
Yeah.
I did create I wrote out my will already, and started to make all of that arrangements with the banks and making sure that they're my putting their name on all of this stuff because we realized my dad passed away and we didn't put our names on his account, so that's frozen right now.
Well,
It would be resolved, of course. I mean, it's not a big deal because it was, but it's one of those things that again, you think you've covered it all, but there's so many little things that we should have done.
there was an occasion only 3 weeks ago, to a month. Uh, Someone we both know, her husband was helping her, and she turned around. He was having a stroke, and she recognized it, and she couldn't quite reach her phone. It was on the other side. She reached her phone. 911 came. Neighbors came. They live in a rural area in Canada, and he's safe and sound now, doing beautifully in rehab. She herself is incapacitated somehow. I forget how. In any case, she needed help. Her two sons didn't live too far away, and they arrived. And over the next few days, she said, Mary Jane, we had written out most of the book. And it was actually early January because there was a lot of banking that was needed to be doing for the first of the year.
Wow.
And they had filled the banking out in the book. And one of the sons could go with the book. They had the bank and the person's name
Right.
and said, this is what's happening. And it went like clockwork.
Simple.
And it's because they filled out the book. He was reluctant. He's like, we don't need this. She's like, yes, we do.
Yes, you do. Yes, you
And
do.
so life can change on a dime. We all know that.
Yeah.
You can fill it out in pencil
Right.
or ink, but don't erase and don't white out. If you can make a change, it belongs to you. It's not a legal document.
Right.
But cross a single line and your initials. This way, if you make a change, you can say, what was I thinking? That's not going to happen. You can change it. But the fact you crossed it out, dated it, and initialed it, you made the change. No
Right.
one else did.
Right.
And nobody took a whiteout or an eraser to it. And
Correct.
that makes it all yours. You can let your attorney know that there's such a book. And I created a position called a first lieutenant. And that's the person who, and it could be your executor.
Right.
But my son was in the house. He knew all the players. He was 28, is personable, etc. I could trust him. And he knew the book. He knew what to do. And he did all the errands for me. So that he came down one morning and said, saluted me because he knew there was going to be work on it. We all need
He's the lieutenant. You said he's the lieutenant, so there you go.
That's how that came.
Wow. Okay. So anything else? Well, while you're at it, so go ahead and tell us where or how someone can reach you if they are interested in either getting the book or just having a conversation with you.
Certainly. Well, as far as the books, my book website is mjcauthor.com.
mjcauthor.com.
And that way you can just go on there. I do sell them as a set where Amazon does not sell them as a set. So that's in your favor. Also, I have lastwishesandssupport.com is my website for classes. And that's
And
all
just
one
add that
word.
on so people could reach you. Last wishes
And support. It's not the word and, it's the letter N
and
between wishes and support.
okay. So that way, yes, people can reach you because sometimes, where people might be just skeptical sometimes, and that's
Sure.
okay. Sometimes it's fear because they almost feel like, well, if I start doing that, I'm creating, I'm manifesting, I'm attracting
Yeah,
it,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's not the truth because at the
No,
end of the day, it is about feeling
this
safe
is one
and
of the best
security.
things you could ever introduce. And it might rustle some feathers. Let them feather. You know, just say, I know this will work though. Watch. Keep a
Okay,
smile. No, no. It's not a contest, and it's not a bad thing.
right,
It's a help. We
right.
all have. You can explain it as a toolkit. We have earthquake kits. We've got first aid kits. All kinds of kits. This is end of life kit.
Yeah,
And so you have your will, your medical directive, and end of life is kind of too final. This is in case you can't speak for yourself. Whether
correct.
you fall down and hit your head,
Right.
it happens to people all the time. And it
People
might
just,
only be
yeah,
for a week
just
or
a
so.
stroke and they're not dead, but they're still, in cap, or even people, or even like having a power of attorney. Let's say you're
Absolutely.
ill and you can't go do your errands. At least there's someone that can do it for you on your behalf.
And put that kind of stuff in your phone.
Right.
Name, put 5 people's names, your doctor, your lawyer, your family, whoever you trust the most, and one out of state, because this world is so crazy between rogue waves and hurricanes. And just make sure you have someone out of state. So there's
You can,
someone somewhere we could call.
okay. Makes
And put
sense.
it in your phone under ICE, which is in case of emergency. It's the first thing the EMTs or police, any first responder, they want your phone and go find this information.
Right.
And it's all time is of the essence.
Yes, definitely. But Mary Jane, thank you so much for coming on today and giving us a real deep dive. Like I said, we couldn't have gotten all that story in the magazine. So thank you for coming here and expanding on the story, giving us more a deep dive and really getting to experience what you went through. Like you said, the frustration. And so it's, the frustration in the middle of everything else.
Yeah,
So,
it's
we
that's
could save so much time. And I love when in our interview, we brought up it's about having the time to heal and mourn properly
mhm,
and not be, like you said, less than 24 hours sitting in a lawyer's office because the paperworks weren't done. So
that's right.
there's a time you need to just heal and mourn and just, be in that space. And you can't do it when you start to panic because you're like, oh my goodness, we don't have and we don't. And the questions come really fast at you. Are you going to cremate? Are you going to do what you, and you're like,
Oh, it's
oh my goodness, what?
whereas if
Wow.
it's planned ahead of time
Mm-hmm.
and it's looked at by not everybody needs to see it. In your heart it's been seen by an attorney and whoever else needs to see it. And you know give people jobs like social media administration. Tip, you're going to keep Facebook forever, or you're going to close it out.
Right.
Give it to a 16-year-old that you absolutely adore. They feel included. They're techies, 9/10 of them, and they love a job. They want to be
Right.
included.
Even,
And to be
I was just looking at Facebook. They even have a place that says, if anything happens to you, who takes over your account?
right.
And you can actually connect someone to that like now, right now.
Right.
You don't have to wait for
And
later.
put that in here.
And put all of that in there, right? So yeah, good. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. This
You're
was
very
very
welcome. Thank you
informative,
for having
definitely
me.
educational, and I hope our viewers take up your offer for a maybe just a phone call, to ask more questions, or just get the book. And like you said, you do have a course, or you work one-on-one with people as well to help them through.
All of the above. Yes.
All the
On my
above.
website, I have, I was recreating the classes this morning. So if it's a little messy, give me a day or two. But my classes will be on the first Wednesday of the month at 10 o'clock in the morning. They run
And
50 minutes.
every Wednesday?
Every first
Okay, every
Wednesday.
first Wednesday.
And then the workshop, where if you understand what the book is for, but you just can't get it done, come to the workshop the third Wednesday at 10 a.m. That will be for 90 minutes, and we will get your workbook finished.
And they can work through the book with you right there,
Yes.
helping them answer the questions.
Yes.
That is great. That's excellent. I'm going to jump on.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So again, thank you so much. I hope our audience enjoyed that information. And we look forward to hearing more from you and staying up to date with what you're doing as you grow your new business now.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. I
All right.
appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
You take care, Mary
Bye
Jane.
now.
Bye. So thank you very much for tuning in to Affidian Magazine presents Spotlight On. And next week, we have, actually, I think next week we are going to be doing Miss Carol Pinkleton. So if you haven't heard from Carol, she is a spiritual counselor and she has a fun story to tell. So I am hoping you guys tuned in next week, Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern, again, for Affidian Magazine presents Spotlight On. And like I said, we will have Carol Pilkington, and she will go a little deeper into spiritual practices and for those who would be interested. And again, on behalf of Affidian Magazine, we are right now opening up our enrollment for writers. So if you would like to become a contributor for the affidianmagazine.com website and expand your brand and your reach and your visibility and become the go-to expert in your field, please reach out to me and at affidianmagazine.com. All the information is right there. So looking forward to hearing from you. And again, thank you.